Let's start with a little bit of history. Back in the day, Greek colonies had spread all throughout Europe and the Mediterranean area. The Greek expansion led into Sicily, where many of the people began to grow and learn from this new presence. Eventually, due to the presence of the Greek colonies on the Lower Peninsula, the Romans adopted many of the Greek gods as their own and created their own version of the Greek traditions and gods. Early forms of the Roman religion were animistic in nature, believing that spirits inhabited everything around them, including people. The first citizens of Rome also believed they were watched over by spirits of their ancestors. They, along with the spirits, were worshipped at a temple on Capitoline Hill. Religion and myth became one, and under the Greek influence, the Roman gods became more anthropomorphic, or in other words, developed human characteristics such as jealousy, love, or hate. However, not to the degree of the Greek gods. Romans idolized a stricter conduct, deeming the zeal of the gods irrelevant, focusing rather on the importance of the ritual to the gods. Their customs, festivals, and worship mattered more than the myths or stories that made up their religion, which explains why there are so many inconsistencies. Cities adopted their own patron deities and performed specified rituals for said deity. Their temples honored the gods, were built throughout the land, and were considered the homes of the gods, hence why worship had to be conducted outside. While many of the Greek traditions were adopted and modified, the Roman religion remained very practical and tradition-based in comparison. But who are these gods? Let's find out. Although many of the gods and goddesses were copied from the Greeks, the Roman counterparts are not as well known because most of the Roman period was spent building empires rather than developing religion. However, they did name the planets after their gods. The Roman religious experience was polytheistic, meaning they believed in many gods and goddesses. However, much like most religions, there was a set of, in this case, 12 gods who were considered the representatives of pagan Rome. Each god is an adaptation of a Greek Olympian. First up is Jupiter. His counterpart is Zeus. He's the king of gods and the brother of Neptune, Pluto, and Juno. He's considered the god of the sky and thunder. Next is Juno. She corresponds with the Greek goddess Hera. Juno is the queen of the gods and married to Jupiter, who's also her brother, along with Neptune and Pluto. She's the daughter of Saturn, a titan, and is considered the protector of Rome's women. She's the mother of Mars, Juventus, and Vulcan. Neptune is the Roman version of Poseidon. He's the brother of Jupiter, Juno, and Pluto, and the god of sea, earthquakes, hurricanes, and horses. He's often seen with his trident, just like Poseidon. Next comes Minerva, who's known as Athena in Greek mythology. She is said to have been formed from the forehead of Jupiter when he swallowed her mother Metis, so is technically considered a daughter of Jupiter. However, this story tends to vary. She's the goddess of art, wisdom, trade, and strategy. Mars, whose Greek counterpart is known as Ares, is the son of Juno. He's considered the god of war and protector of agriculture. He's the father of Romulus and Remus. Romulus eventually becomes the founder of Rome, hence why Mars is sometimes considered the father of Rome. Venus is also known as the goddess Aphrodite and is viewed as the mother of Roman people due to her close relations with Mars, who's, as stated before, the father of the founder. She is the mother of many deities and is the goddess of love, beauty, fertility, sex, desire, and prosperity. Apollo is a special god because his name is the same as his Greek half. He is the son of Jupiter and Latona, a minor goddess, and twin of Diana. He's the god of music, healing, light, and truth. Diana, or Artemis in Greek mythology, is also the daughter of Jupiter and Latona, and as stated previously, Apollo's twin. She's the goddess of the hunt, moon, and birth. Vulcan, whose Greek counterpart is named Hephaestus, is the god of fire, volcanoes, metalwork, and forgery. He's responsible for making the weapons of the gods. Next is Vesta, known as Hestia in Greek mythology. She's the daughter of Saturn and Opus. She's a lesser-known goddess, a part of the Jupiter, Juno, Neptune, and Pluto family. She's the goddess of hearth, home, and family. Vesta is sometimes replaced by Bacchus, who is known as Dionysus in Greek mythology. He's the god of grape harvest, winemaking and wine, fertility, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, and theater. This is then followed by Mercury, whose counterpart is known as Hermes. He is the son of Maia and Jupiter, and the god of profit, trade, eloquence, communication, travel, trickery, and thieves. He's responsible for leading dead souls to the underworld. Next is Ceres, whose name is Demeter in Greek mythology. She is the daughter of Saturn and Opis. She's the goddess of agriculture, grain, women, motherhood, and marriage. She's considered the lawgiver and eternal mother. Finally, a sometimes mentioned god is Pluto, who's very similar to the Greek god Hades. He's the ruler of the underworld and has a three-headed dog named Cerberus who guards his kingdom.
Associated with the Roman religion is the idea of religious teachings. Religious teachings simply refer to what the people of the religion at the time believed in and what they ultimately followed. These teachings make up the core of the religion. Without them, the religion would be empty and incomplete. With that, Roman mythology lays out several teachings and ideas to follow associated with religion. The first concept that Romans believed in was the idea of having various gods centered around them. This belief mainly centered on the main gods and goddesses and what they represented. For individuals, this religion was more about the relationship between man and forces who ultimately created mankind, and not necessarily about the spiritual connection. The next belief centered on this religion included the idea of animism. Animism was the belief that all things, living and non-living, have a soul. In relation to their animistic beliefs, this also meant that they believed that spirits are populated around them, including humans. They thought animals had special powers that would be utilized through sculptures. Another belief that the Romans carried on and played a large portion of the religion was the idea of superstitions. Superstitions played a large portion in ancient Roman mythology between gods and humans. They believed in various warnings signaling good or bad luck. For example, doing something such as picking up a horseshoe would carry good luck, while crows were a sign of bad luck. The final concept that the Romans believed in was divine intervention. This had an extremely important influence on lives. This teaching refers to an act of God in which allows good to occur or prevents bad from progressing. Despite the ideas and teachings of these stated beliefs, the Roman religion in fact did not truly follow a set of strict rules or a creed that was laid out directly. This means that this religion was very relaxed and did not have these established beliefs set in stone. This religion can also be referred to as a non-dogmatic religion. Connected to Roman mythology held several stories and myths in which help build upon the religion and explain how the religion originated. How the Roman religion originated is explained in a Roman mythology creation story called Romulus and Remus. The story of twin brothers talked about the creation story that founded the city of Rome. One day, the king where the boys lived was worried that someday the twins would overthrow him. He had the boys put in a basket on the Tiber River. He thought that they would die. The twins were soon found by a she-wolf who cared for them and protected them as if they were its own. Eventually, shepherds saw and raised them. They grew up and became leaders. One day, Remus was trapped and brought to the king. They ended up overthrowing and killing him. They eventually came to where Rome is today and were going to determine which hill to use by waiting for a sign from the gods. Both began to make their walls and each became jealous of one another. Remus jumped over the wall to demonstrate how easy it would be to go over, and Romulus ultimately killed his brother due to anger. With him dead, he continued to work on his city in which he founded, making himself king. The city grew and prospered over time. The second myth surrounding the idea of Roman mythology is the myth of Jupiter and the bee. This myth had been successful in teaching lessons in which can be used in life. This myth centers on sweetness and revenge. One day, Bee decided to visit Jupiter after being angry that a person took the honey. Later on, Bee offers Jupiter honey and, liking the taste, promises her to fulfill one of her wishes. Annoyed by this, due to his love for human race, he granted a wish. The story is concluded with the moral of being happy with what one currently has and that revenge can have terrible consequences. Like any other religion, including this one, sacred symbols are used to represent the religion in a way that words cannot. Symbols not only express creativity and emotion, but symbols usually contain a hidden meaning in which is associated to religion or represents something along it. One important symbol that was commonly found to represent this religion was the cornucopia. This symbol, which resembles a horn-shaped basket filled with various fruits and vegetables, resembles something that you would see around Thanksgiving time. Found in both Roman and Greek mythology, the cornucopia symbol actually originated from Greek mythology. Also known as the Horn of Plenty, the cornucopia is seen to provide endless amounts of food and beverage when required. This symbol also symbolizes the boundless nature of the world and the constant flow of energy. It also encourages the ideology of giving and taking. The second symbol, which is commonly associated to the Roman religion, is the caduceus. This symbol, which resembles a medical symbol, is again found in both Roman and Greek mythology, but originated from Greek mythology in its origins. This symbolizes good conduct and moral balance, along with the incorporation of the four natural elements. No religion would be complete without the idea of having and performing rituals in which are sacred in some way or form. With that, the Roman religion holds many unique and religious rituals associated to the religion and have great significance that commonly refer back to the various gods that they believe in. One very well-known ritual that the Romans hold is a sacrifice of animals to worship each god. This is the ritual of killing and offering an animal. This sacrifice ultimately established suitable relationships between gods, humans, and animals. The process of this ritual begins with sprinkling bread and wine on the animal's heads and cutting its throat. Organs were later burnt and taken to an altar. A priest would then say a quiet prayer while a flute is being played to avoid hearing sounds of evil. Another ritual followed and performed by these people was a ritual called Saturnalia. Saturnalia is an ancient festival in Rome which honors the god Saturn, who specialized in agricultural needs. This festival is celebrated from December 17th through December 23rd. During this festival, work, businesses, schools, and the court of law were closed and everything surrounding society came to a stop. Individuals would decorate their houses with wreaths and wear colorful clothing. Associated with this festival involved singing, playing music, gambling, eating, and exchanging gifts.
Up next is the community of faith. Their organization of religious leaders followed a hierarchy very similar to a regular hierarchy. Much of the Roman religion was overseen by priests. They were responsible for holding ceremonies and rituals such as sacrifices. There were several subcategories within the priesthood dedicated to a specific designation. These divisions were called the four priestly colleges, the first of which was the pontifices. They were advisors of kings, providing them with the advice and protecting the pontifical books. This section was led by the Pontifex Maximus. Eventually, as time proceeded and the political hierarchy became increasingly conjoined with the religion, emperors began taking positions of power in the church. In 12 BC, when Augustus became Roman emperor, he also claimed the title of Pontifex Maximus for himself, transitioning into an era of combined politics and religion. He was the first of many going forward to hold this title. The Pontifex Maximus is considered the head honcho of this priestly college. The next college was known as the Septiemviri Epulo, which translates to the priesthood of seven diners. There were originally 7 priests who controlled this section, hence the name. However, as time went on, the board opened to a larger public of priests, totaling 10. They were responsible for setting up feasts for the gods, which were organized at Capitoline Hill. The Quindecimviri Sacres Facundis, priesthood of 15, was the group to follow. They carried out the rites, rituals, and traditions of the time, leading something like what is considered a mass or a sacrament nowadays. Their main responsibility was to guard the Sibylline books, which were a collection of prophecies written at the time. The final college was known as the Augurs. They were associated with interpretation of signs sent by the gods. For example, things such as flights of birds, thunder, lightning, and other natural phenomena. Subsections included haruspices, who were consulted regarding the inspection of sacrifices, flamens, who were considered devotees of one specific god, goddess, or individual god, and fatales, who were associated with the declaration of war. This idea of division of responsibility, as well as the combination of the political hierarchy and the religious, led to the formation of the structure of the current Roman Catholic Church. Roman mythology was mainly based on an idea called mos maiorum, or way of the elders. This meant the elderly within the community dictated tradition through passing it down throughout generations. Their ancestors, who were believed to have started with the gods and goddesses, handed down the values that should guide their lives. The general belief was that anything new was potentially dangerous. This was called res nova, meaning new. In context, it translates to revolution, which was something society feared. One of the most important things passed down throughout the generations were the myths or stories. They taught important values that were at the core of their religion. Each individual story provided a purpose or addressed a value each individual was required to follow. Some religious values included piety or pietas, which involved worshipping the gods, auctoritas, which outlines the authority of the gods and explains how each individual must essentially know their place on earth, and there were also more ethical-centered values such as industria, or hard work, bodhicitta, which means modesty or moral cleanliness, and fides, which is faithfulness. This required society to keep their obligations. For women, this meant chastity until marriage and monogamy. However, this did not apply to men, who were responsible for paying debts, truthfulness, and treating everyone according to their social rank. Failing to meet these responsibilities was viewed as an insult to the gods. Another thing passed down was the belief that the relationship between man and God was more so contractual rather than spiritual. The idea was that the practice of religion and participation in tradition or ritual was seen as a sign of respect to the gods, and refusal to worship was deemed an insult and punishable by death. Further teachings addressed the belief that each household has a designated god or goddess whom they worship privately. This was called depenat. Although it was more so a teaching, each household held a shrine with images of a god they worshipped and did so during family meals or on special occasions. They provided offerings including cakes, wine, honey, incense, and even blood sacrifices. Overall, the Roman religion is full of many vibrant traditions, practices, and rituals, and although many did not survive to be spread throughout today's day and age, they played a large role in the history of a once small empire. And with that, that's a wrap.